So,
Okay.
all right. So here we go. So, hello, Geetam community. Hope you're all doing very, very well. I'm Arun Karthik, your director for sports, and as many of you know, we are celebrating sports this week to commemorate the National Sports Day. We've already had some exciting activities over the last few days. And today, by all means, is the most exciting of them all. And this is a talk that I've been wanting to set up for a while. And what better occasion than now? And in the first ever edition of Let's Talk Sports series, we have with us Somdev Devvarman, a very, very dear friend of mine and one of the best tennis players that India has produced. And he's by far the fittest tennis player in India and is up there amongst the best in the world. And I'm quite sure he'll still be able to run circles around a lot of youngsters even today. Uh, so Som has played with the biggest stars of tennis at the biggest of stages. He has several high-profile wins under his belt. He's overcome the likes of Carlos Moya, Marin Cilic, Del Potro, who are all Grand Slam winners, and several others. He's one of the most celebrated NCAA tennis players of all time. He's reached the NCAA finals three times consecutively and won two of them. He is also highly regarded for his exploits while representing India. He's won his singles, and he's won a double gold medalist at the Asian Games, a gold medalist at Commonwealth Games. I mean, the list goes on, right? While tennis is his claim to fame, Somdev is a lover of sport in general, right? And be it football, be it basketball, American football, golf, the list is endless. Anyway, so I can go on and on talking about Som given the history that we have. And I'm going to stop now with the introduction bit. And I'm sure you've all gotten a fair understanding of our guest for the day. With that, welcome, Somdev. We are extremely thrilled to have you here.
Thank you.
Looking
Thank
forward
you,
to this
Arun.
chat.
It's been a pleasure to be here. That's not how you usually introduce me, so
I
I'll take
know
that.
it took a lot of effort for me to talk this way, you know. Anyway, so
So
on all right. So on the other side, we have a legend in the making, a very
we
inspiring
do.
story. Yeah,
I
yeah, agreed. A very inspiring story to say the least. Our moderator of the day for the first ever Let's Talk Sport series is Navneeth. Navneeth is an ex-Googler. He spent almost 10 years with Google. He quit his job to pursue his passion. And Navneeth is a sports broadcaster right now, and he's an absolute gem of a person. He's been making waves in the cricket presenting space over the last few years. He's worked with the ICC at the Under 19 World Cup in South Africa, was a presenter at the Women's T20 World Cup in Australia, as a commentator for various cricket leagues around the world, and has been the face of RCB's 12th Man TV for the last 3 years. Uh, Welcome, Navneet. With that, I hand it over to you, Navneet and Som. Take it away, guys. You're on mute, Navneet.
That's a very generous introduction, Arun. I want to say a big thank you for giving me the opportunity to be able to just facilitate this conversation. And I also just want to say a very, very good morning. As per the definition of good morning, this is what it means, because Somdev is up at 5:30 in the morning in the United States to talk to you guys, right? So Som, thanks a lot for joining us. Looking forward to this conversation. We've had many conversations on sport, and I'll promise you one thing: when Som talks sport, it's always going to be fun, right? And there are several students who are dialing in, and a bunch of you will probably joining us all along as we move through the chat as well. I want to say a big good afternoon to all the students from Geetam University, and I hope you guys have had a good week. We're leading into the National Sports Day on Sunday. From what I understand, the Geetam Sports Week has been pretty exciting so far. And I know that Som and I stand in between you and your weekend. I promise you that we will end the week on a good note. It will be engaging. The idea of this conversation is really not for it to be just Som and me talking, or Som particularly. We want all of you all to engage with us. Drop in your questions. Som will be happy to take as many as possible. Right. So raise your hand. We'll try to bring you in every single time. Or even if you do have questions, drop them in the chat box and we'll take them as we move forward, right? And you heard a lot about Som. I've had the privilege of knowing Som for a while. I've met him on a few occasions. We've spoken sport a lot of times. You know what? Not just what he does on the tennis court. He is, well, he loves singing. He plays the guitar. The last video that went viral of Som's was a song that he composed on the fly after Neeraj Chopra did what he did in Tokyo. Well, if you don't know what I'm talking about, get onto the internet, check on Twitter or Instagram, and you'll see Somdev singing a song for Neeraj Chopra after he won gold at Tokyo with Sunil Gavaskar, Ashish Nehra, and many big names in the broadcasting space, right? So that is Som for you. He's a lot more than just a tennis player. I will promise you that. And a wonderful person to be chatting with. I'm not even talking about the fact that he has an absolute rock star of a hairstyle that he flaunts with style on TV or on the tennis court, right? That is Som. So with that as the context, I think it's a good time for us to get started with our conversation. Som, as always, a pleasure talking to you, my friend. I wanna start off by asking you this. You know, I was talking to Arun and he told me that most of the students attending this conversation will be in the age group of, let's say, 18 to 25 or so and thereabouts, right? And I'm going to put you in the spot right away with my first question, right? So if you had something to tell yourself when you were 18 years old, right? That's almost what, 18 years back itself, right? So with everything that you've learned over these years as an athlete, as a pro athlete yourself, you know, and a lot of students listening to this, what would be that little lesson you will tell your younger self?
Wow, we're really diving into it. Self-reflection is a great way to start your day. Um, Great question, Navneeth. Honestly, what would I tell myself when I was between 18 and 23, 18 and 25? I would tell myself, A, all the things that you think that you know, you probably don't know. You know, I think that's number one. B, you know, always be on the lookout for, you know, the next thing that can happen, because any day is a possibility for you to make something happen.
Yeah.
You know, you know, and the reason I'm saying this, Navneeth, is because also just to put it in context, you know, I did play tennis for a long time, but you know, one of the reasons I was very excited about this talk myself is because I'm also a very strong believer in people going to college and having a good experience with sports in college. And from what I gather, this is a big part of what Geetam is trying to do with its kids. It's trying to start the conversation and move the narrative in the right direction with, you know, doing sports for different reasons. You know, so one of the things that I feel is that, you know, it just opens up so many avenues.
Yeah.
Sports does, you know, and it was one of the coolest things. Like personally for me, yeah, it was um through tennis that you know, I played college tennis, which then allowed me to, you know, get on the tour, and then, you know, gave me a whole lot of different experiences, you know, in so many different ways. But you know, even I look around me, even right now, currently I'm in New York City. I'm at the US Open, and you know, I've seen about 15 players over here that I've played juniors with, never played the pro circuit with. And you know, they found a way to do something in sports marketing, in player services, in event management. You know, I mean, I know that. So Arun and me actually go way back when you know, when we were very young kids, and Arun is one of those guys that, you know, you know, he's always as good as he's always been while studying. You know, it's sport that's actually driven him, and it's sport that's actually kept us, you know, to be such close friends, because we love discussing different things, you know. And Arun is your guy who, you know, who's gone to an IIM and who has managed big events, and now I'm sure he would love to see what it's like to, manage an event like the US Open. And it's crazy for me because, even I haven't been around here in quite some time because of COVID and the travel restrictions. But it's unbelievable to see the number of faces over here that have just been associated with sport, and they've finally finding ways to make it out. So it's just, I feel like, you know do things for the right reasons. Listen, for follow your dreams, follow your heart, know that, like, at least for me at the time, it was like, is sport a viable career?
Yeah.
That was a big thing. And this was maybe 18 years ago, like you said. I think 18 years later, the first thing I'd be like, it is. It is a viable career, not just in being a professional tennis player or a professional athlete, but it's a viable career in like 15 other ways.
Yeah.
And it's only opening up more. I mean, come on, Navneet. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Think about where the IPL was 15 years ago, and think about the industry that's opened up now. I mean, what are your thoughts?
I come from, as per the very definition of a corporate job, right? And I was able to let go of a corporate job only because of the opportunities that I started to see in the cricketing space for myself as a broadcaster. And I think the point that you're trying to make, Somir, was, I think, one of the first sentences you said is, if we don't do something, we'll never know it existed, right? I think that's what you were getting at. And especially when we're at that age of 18, 20 years old, in our minds, we're already telling ourselves that this is what we want to do without even having an idea of what is in front of us or the opportunities that we have. And one of the best pieces of advice I've gotten till date, it was from a very senior leader there in Google, and it stands good even today, is look at your life as a pyramid, and the base of that pyramid is the broadest. So consider that as the age 20 to 30, where you try everything possible, as wide a range of things possible. It doesn't even have to be related to each other. Age 30 to 40 is the next phase of the pyramid, where you narrow down, you've sort of done 6 to 7 different things, and you have an idea of what you really love doing. And age 40 to 60 is that one thing that you're absolutely good at, and that's when you start getting the money and all the savings, and you love what you're doing. And that's how you look at your career. And I think that's sort of what you're getting at, is in sports has so many options in itself, as something that you can do. And you don't need to be an athlete to be associated in the sports industry. There are opportunities for people who come from a completely different background, for students, and for folks from a corporate world, for example, as well. I'm guessing that's also what you're trying to tell people as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I guess that's one way to view it. You've seen sports at a very close, how do I say, in close proximity in India and in the US as well. US is by default the benchmark for the world to catch up with when it comes to a sporting infrastructure, their sporting landscape, etc. Right? I'd like to believe India is moving in the right direction, but throw some sense of where do you see the big change in what is it that India needs to be doing differently for it to go in the direction of the United States and to be the global, sporting powerhouse in the future?
I mean, honestly, I think for us to be saying sporting powerhouse kind of thing, I think first thing we need to do in anything is take the right steps, take the baby steps, and do them for the right reasons. So I like, the first thing is, why are we playing sports? The answer shouldn't be, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, it shouldn't be to become a sporting powerhouse. The answer should be because it's good for the country.
Okay.
It's good for the youth. It's good to stay healthy, and it's good for several reasons. It's good because it keeps your community active. It's good because, you know in the global health index, India is very low down, way outside 100, and this would actually be a way for people to stay healthy, and especially in today's time, it's so important, to stay healthy, to stay happy. The two are directly linked together. So, I think the first thing is, we need to actually find a way to make everybody in our country want to play sport. It should be incentivized. We should be pushed. And I think those are the first steps. The first point of entry to sport for a lot of kids nowadays are schools.
Yeah.
you know, based on the fact that there's a space crunch, less people are allowed to play. So I think from the very first experience, sports should be something that is fun.
Yeah.
Sports should be something that, you know, people look forward to. You know what? I want to do that again. And if I want to do it again and I want to do it at a broader scale, I should have the opportunities to do it. So let's assume you're a kid in any city, and you've decided that you want to, I don't know, swim. Hopefully, ideally, we should be at a stage in our country where if they want to swim, or let's say with the new kind of wave that's going in Indian sport with the Olympics, you know, let's say they want to box, let's say they want to play hockey, the number of women that now want to play hockey, you know, and
Javelin. I'm starting to see
javelin.
videos of kids with, something that looks like a javelin, but that is so beautiful.
Exactly, exactly. So all I'm saying is for us to now become a true sporting nation, what would be amazing is if every single one of those kids that wanted to do it found a way to do it,
Yeah, yeah,
you know, and we and our local ecosystems and our small local ecosystems in every city, people came together and said, you know what, it's important to allow these guys to give this a shot.
yeah,
Because if we don't, how are we going to know? You know, and this is why I feel that, you know, India could be in a sense around the corner, because there are so strictly based on numbers, there's so
yeah,
many Indians out there,
yeah,
and if every single one of them wanted to play sport and they could have access to playing, you know, and I'm not saying create uh, you know a sports haven, although that would be a goal in the
yeah,
future. We're saying create a place where kids are always excited to play and always have a chance,
yeah,
regardless of the sport, you know. And let's say they want basketball coaching, it should be not too far away, it shouldn't be that difficult, you know,
yeah,
because nowadays you know, you oftentimes hear the stories of Indian athletes, the amount of difficulties they had to face to get to practice. You know, the guy had to go from here to there, and then he had to take another train, and then by the time it was 5 a.m. and I'm like, wow, and you hear these stories all the time. I've seen it myself, you know, with my friends, one of my friends, just in order to play tennis. And you know, I don't know this guy really well as well. We were together in academy. His family used to wake up at 3 a.m. and get their lunch ready by 3:30 a.m. because he had to take a train to Chennai. And then once he came to Chennai, then he had to take a bus.
wow.
And this is all just to play an hour and a half of tennis, you know. Now imagine if he didn't have to do that, you know, and imagine if imagine if where he was staying there were 3 tennis courts, and
Yeah,
a number of more kids that would probably be able to play, you know. So yeah, I mean, you know, I think the story of sport and struggles go hand in hand,
yeah,
and this is quite universal. It's not the most, you know, it's the most normal thing to hear that an athlete that's made it in the top has really gone through the, you know, the ropes of trying to find a way to make it. But what I'm trying to say is that that's great, and that will always continue happening because that's just the nature of sport. But how about we also make that middle level a lot easier, a lot more accessible,
yeah. And I think the
you know?
starting point for that is awareness in itself to the masses, right? About sports and the joy and the jubilation it brings and the life lessons it teaches us. For me,
Hmm.
this Olympics was such a huge step in the right direction. You were right in the thick of it. You were part of the broadcast team. You saw it all. Every time you're done with your broadcast, I'm pretty sure you went back to your social media only to realize that all of India is talking about the Olympics. For a change, cricket took a back seat, and all of India woke up to watch everything from javelin to discus throw to golf at 4 a.m. in the morning that we have no idea how it works. But and I think as Indians, we're also a little emotional. We just want to see
Little emotional.
but it's beautiful in a way. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because um, after Saina won a medal in 2012, I think in London,
London.
suddenly India is starting to become a powerhouse in badminton. There are more people, more boys and girls getting onto the badminton courts. The academies are filled, right? And it's happening in boxing, in shooting, in wrestling, in archery, where India is starting to become much more. But I'm not even talking about, representing at the highest level. I'm just talking about the masses, all of India getting out. And like you said, just doing something for them to be physically fitter, for them to feel happily mentally. And I think the start is awareness. And I just thought that the Olympics was a huge step in the right direction. I was talking to Siddharth Pandey on a similar conversation, who was along with you on the broadcast, and for those of you watching this, Siddharth Pandey is a former hockey player. He's an expert in hockey. And he didn't mince his words when he said, India, in the next 5 years, are going to be a force to reckon with in hockey. They will be what India is in cricket in the upcoming Youth World Cups, men's and women's. India are definitely going in as one of the favorites. More and more people are playing hockey today. There is a solid infrastructure. There's an excellence program that's put in place in the background. So it's happening. And I think more and more people just realizing that sports is something that they can go to as soon as they're done with work. I just see a message here on our chat from Arnav, who says, I'm watching this while working in my corporate job. Kudos to the team. Arnav, kudos to you for tuning into this conversation while you're still at your job. It's a Friday evening, so I'm hoping it's a light day. But the fact that more and more people are stepping out, they're going to the gyms, they're going to do their workouts, cycling, Zumba, yoga, and all forms of fitness really, so is what's making it beautiful. And that's really what we're trying to get to.
Yeah, undoubtedly. I think the exciting thing for me, at least when I see it, the next generation of parents, you know, basically people like you, me, Arun, and guys in our mid 30s and mid 40s, as scary as it sounds, being a parent, but I feel like now a lot of parents are starting to push their kids into sport, and also for the right reasons. I think it's really important to kind of continue on that trend, because just by sheer numbers, what China has done since the 1980s, they've just brought sheer volume
Yeah.
to several sports, saying, and I know this personally. I have a friend who actually works in the Chinese sporting system, and he says, as crazy as it sounds, we play a numbers game.
Yeah.
They get 10,000 gymnasts in, and the 10,000 gets streamlined to 5,000. And by the time they get to the last 10, they're pretty darn good.
They're world
You
class,
know,
they're Olympic
they're
material.
absolutely exactly. So I think, it's important. It's important for us to create these kind of awareness and create. I think the word you used was awareness.
Yeah.
I think that's incredibly important. The why you're playing is one of the most important things to address once you've kind of started playing for a couple years.
Yeah. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know and I think that's the most important thing over here, because it's great to go out there and play for medals, obviously, but
Yeah.
as a young kid, as a 8-year-old, as a 10-year-old, as a 12-year-old,
Oh, then
it's
happen.
more of a dream.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
dream. Like, maybe medals happen, that's fantastic. We have like this cloud to kind of navigate towards,
Yeah.
but along the way you'll realize that if that doesn't happen, that's fine.
Yeah.
I'm better off today that I've played sports than if I wouldn't have played sports.
Yeah.
And like you said, various reasons, in fact, one of the startups that I was lucky to be involved with, along with my co-founders, we used to focus on grassroots of sports,
Yeah.
and we used to focus on value building. There's enormous value in being a leader. There's enormous value in being a leader and failing,
Yeah.
which will happen in sports. Imagine you're captain, you have to pick a team, and your team loses. One team win, one team loses. To deal with these things, to deal with fair play, to deal with how do I deal with a situation the right way in a calm mindset. How do I deal with
Working in a
conflict?
team environment versus in being by yourself. That's another thing that.
Exactly, team environment, dealing with winning, dealing with losing, dealing with waking up the next day when you're dead tired,
Yeah.
dealing with finding a way to give that extra when you have nothing, or when you feel like you have nothing, and then you realize that you actually do have a lot more in you. And these are just amazing things that sport will allow you the opportunity. All you have to do is allow sport the opportunity to come in to
Yeah.
your life. It's as simple as that. So, like, I'm still incredibly passionate about this. And the nice thing is that, you know like, while obviously a big part of us talks about the wave of getting more and more success in the Olympics. You know, it just seems to make sense to me that, while that is should it can be one of our main focuses, we should also be doing it because it's good for everybody.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. It's just good for everybody to be active. It's good for everybody to be outside and playing together and playing a sport, and coming together as a society in the evenings. And that's one of the things that I feel living in a place like America,
Yeah.
where you've seen the opportunity that I've literally gone to some high school basketball games, and the electricity in there when the game is tied and there's 4 seconds left and the guy's thrown up a shot. If you're engrossed in that game, you are engrossed in it. And it looks the exact same. And I've been to NBA games and I've watched LeBron James and Steph Curry throw balls up. It's the same excitement, and the nice thing is that the American system has that way where if you want to play basketball, there is a court somewhere outside.
Yeah.
If you want to play baseball, there is little leagues probably within 20-30 minutes of a drive for you. It's not a hike. If you want to play, I think they have 4 or 5 major sports. So that's an American football, hockey, baseball, basketball. These are probably their majors, but I mean, it's also the capital in the world in terms of golf.
Yeah.
Tennis is huge over here. They're picking up in pretty much every other sport, things like lacrosse, things like, cross country running.
They play
You
cricket
name this.
now. They play cricket now.
And now cricket. And now cricket, But the nice thing is that and I get this a lot. Somebody asked me on Instagram and on Facebook. I get DMs in my thing from quite a few people asking me, at 27 and 28, can we make a career? I really want to play for India. And it's not that, it's not in my place to say whether you can or whether you cannot. But the nice thing would be, hey, you know what? You should be able to find out for yourself just by putting yourself out there, and you'll get the feedback within enough time to know, A, can you make a career? B, what are the other career options within this career?
Yeah.
If this is what you really want to do, and I feel like similar to what 10 years ago, uh, maybe we didn't know how big the tech boom was going to be.
Yeah.
We didn't know how many people would rely on, this economy to kind of survive. And, you may not directly be an engineer, but you can be a part of the tech boom.
Yeah.
I think it's similar with sport. I think it's similar.
It's a very nice analogy. Yeah. And
Yeah.
and one thing with Indians, once we get into the deep depth of it, we become really good at what we're doing, right? It's a matter of before, like China, we play the numbers game in a lot of these sports, right? And hopefully we keep making strides in the right direction. You started playing pretty early. What brought you to the tennis court? You started really early. Talk to us about your childhood playing tennis in India, and how did that change once you moved to the US?
I mean, listen, different journeys, different experiences for everybody, But for me personally, I started playing tennis at the age of 9, which is actually fairly late.
Okay.
If you ask most pro tennis professionals at the US Open, when did you start playing tennis? The answer would probably be somewhere between 4 and 7.
Wow.
On average. There's some guys that picked it up much earlier, and some guys who picked it up a little bit later, but 9, 11, 12. 12 is like one of the latest answers, So that's when I picked it up. But I mean, when did I think it was going to be a career?
Yeah.
When I was 22.
Wow.
For the first time. Because no, actually, the first time I thought I was going to be a career was when I was 18.
Okay.
And then I got smacked in the face with this thing called humble pie. And I realized very quickly that my reality was very far away from the reality of professional tennis.
Yeah.
My reality that I built in my head.
Yeah.
And the way this happens is you go out there and you're this young kid who's got all of this energy and believe that, nothing can stop you when you want to win. And then you go out there and you play against a lot better tennis players, and you're like, actually, there's a lot of things that can stop me out there. I need to go out and improve. I need to improve. I need to put the work in, and I need to find a way to raise my level. And then you get down to basics, and then it takes you 3 or 4 years to then realize what it takes and what's missing. And so yeah, even my career, I feel like at different times I was at very different places, and it's just experience that teaches you what not to do almost. you
And
know
tell us a little bit about the NCAA. And for again, everyone that are watching this video, the NCAA is the National College Athletics Association in the US. So it's essentially an association that conducts sports tournaments at the college level. The difference being the standard and the quality of the sport and the athletes in the NCAA is probably just a notch below the international level. That's how absolutely robust it is. And it's a serious part of life as a college student in the United States. Right? So talk to us about your stint during those years. I'm
yeah.
assuming the glory days.
Yeah. Glory days from a different life almost seems like.
Yeah, yeah,
But just to put it in perspective, Navneet, first of all, for people who do not know, NCAA, the NCAA system is so impressive that I'd love to actually get get the actual statistic on this. But basically, I heard a commentator say during the Olympics that if the NCAA was a nation in its own, if so, imagine every athlete has been in the NCAA, they become a part of the NCAA nation of college athletics and you know
yeah.
professional success after that. If they were a nation in the Olympics, they would be top 10 of all time.
Wow. Is that true? That's true.
And that's something that people don't really identify with, because they're like, well, how? Because here's the answer. Most of the people, the Michael Phelps didn't go to college, but most of the other people did.
Yeah.
Just to put it in perspective, I went to a college called the University of Virginia.
Yeah.
My college alone has, I think, 3 or 4 times the number of medals that India as a country has.
Oof.
And this is one college. The NCAA has
100.
1,500, 2,000 colleges,
Yeah.
and different colleges for, it's almost reached a point where it's very similar to, how you would pick a college for the engineering aspect of it, or did they have this course that they're very strong with. Nowadays, people start picking colleges based on, they're really good at football, they're really good at basketball.
Yeah.
Um, and this is the kind of experience that I want to have in school. And they have a really good athletic. I mean, listen to this. I mean, just imagine, um, you know, a regular football season has 14 games.
Yeah.
College football, American football season has 14 games, which is generally 7 home, 7 away. And if you've qualified, you potentially have a bowl game, which is like your one playoff game at the end of the year. In every one, so in the 7 home games, uh, a small school like Virginia will have anywhere between 65 and 75,000 fans,
What? Wow.
right? And this happens 7 times a year. Um, the bigger schools like in Alabama or in LSU or Georgia, they will have anywhere between 90 and 100,000 people at every single home game,
Incredible.
right? Now let's check a different sport. So like a basketball, a place like us, University of Virginia, we were NCAA champions. Just throwing that out there, bragging rights. But we on a regular home game, there would probably be 20 to 25 home games per year. We would have a sold out stadium probably 50% of that time.
Yeah.
And a sold out stadium means 25,000 people for 20. So you're talking about a place where everybody wants to go and wants to be invested in the local scene of sport.
Yeah.
And I think that to be invested in the local scene of sport is a great way to start, which is why I'm really happy to see, like, even in the last 20 years, I'm sure I'd love to hear your thoughts as well, but like, the number of times we've now been able to watch the ISL, foreign players coming and playing different sports. I know I was it was unfortunate. And by the way, you mentioned Sid Pandey. I absolutely love Sid Pandey. I actually think, along with um, the number of athletes that are being found, India now becoming a sporting nation, I think it's important to also find broadcasters,
100%. And Sid
you
Bearer
know.
is a bona fide flag bearer of Indian hockey. He deep down
Yeah,
inside, he wants to see Indian hockey be where they truly deserve to be. And for me, that is beautiful, right?
yeah,
It's so deep inside him. And I'm sure it'll come
yeah.
at some point. Yeah.
No, and it's similar with you and Navneet. If you don't mind, I'd love to tell a quick story about the first interaction that you and I had to everybody else watching, if you don't mind.
Absolutely. Sure.
Yeah, so just so I mean, Arun was out here giving a nice intro to Navneet, and the first time Navneet and I met was actually in Singapore.
Yeah.
And we had kind of gotten in touch, we stayed in touch, and I could feel the passion in his voice for cricket. And I was like, man, people in India need to hear a person who's passionate and who loves the sport and who does his work and wants to actually be out there saying the story the right way.
Yeah.
And that's just an example of, this would this have been possible 25 years ago, 30 years ago? I don't know.
Yeah.
But the tech boom has allowed everybody to have a voice, and people who are passionate, you know, uh, I think these are the ones that should be the voices, because they help a lot of people along the way as well. And you had asked me, you were like, hey, should I do this? And I was like, 100%. So I was like, I don't know about, and the fact that you had the ability to be in tech and say, I want to now check out the sporting aspect of it because I want, this is what I want to do. I
Yeah.
think that's beautiful. And hopefully the youth start feeling that way about different things, because there's so many avenues in sport,
Yeah.
similar to we didn't know the number of things that were available in tech. I
100%.
think it's actually that similar in sport, because just imagine, like, and I know Arun has probably spoken to a lot of his students about this, but imagine you're running a massive event, the amount of things that go into it, whether it's broadcasting will have so many different aspects of it, you being an expert, you being an anchor, you being a presenter, uh, you being a player.
I love
uh,
I love how Som is throwing all the broadcasting terminology. Guys, you're looking at Som Devvarman, the broadcaster now, not the tennis player anymore. He loves
New
being
avatar.
on the camera.
Com- yeah, and it's just exciting, because I'm very young in the broadcasting as well, and the way I have always approached it was, you know, if I have the opportunity, and I know you do it similarly, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this as well, Navneet. But for me, I was like, when I was watching sports as a kid, I used to love watching that guy where I would get a lot of information from him.
200%. I know
So
what
if I feel like I can be that same person, like how amazing is that opportunity?
absolutely. I always, for
Yeah,
some reason, had 1 year go towards what the broadcaster is saying, apart from watching the sport itself, right? So it was built in. Maybe destiny had broadcasting in store for me as part of my career. Even when as a kid I was watching cricket and stuff, but it is beautiful. But you know what? I'm gonna pause here for a second to actually say kudos to Geetam University, because that's what Arun's trying to do, is essentially bring in this culture that we see in countries like the United States, and bring in a sporting culture, telling students the importance of why sports, not just as a profession but even as recreational reasons, is so important for the human body. And I love to see that you'll have a sports week. And I've had multiple discussions with Arun over so many weeks now, and the students who are here, I'm pretty sure they'll be testimony to this. But the fact that they're thinking through this detail, they have a long-term vision to this, is in itself a step in the right direction. That itself is a huge step forward, right? So Arun, kudos to you and the university for really pioneering this move towards making this happen. And yes, I can see the politician pose over there. Thanks for that.
I thought he was not listening, to be honest. I'm
That's
surprised he's been listening. The
so
amount of times he's heard me say these things, I thought he wouldn't be doing it, and that's one of the reasons we're friends. But Arun, yeah, unbelievable job, man. And Navneet, I think just bouncing off what you just said, um, the fact that there is a university out there that A is thinking along these lines,
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
but B is also providing opportunities,
Yeah,
providing opportunities, creating an ecosystem. Not that you're going to, the first thing with sports, and I think it's a beautiful analogy, is you can taste, you can't taste success on day one.
yeah,
It's just not possible.
yeah,
But you can get that feeling of excitement on day one,
100%. Yeah,
and it's that feeling that drives you as an athlete. Just go out there and play with your friends and feel the exhilaration of like scoring a golden goal or having to defend a golden goal. And then you realize why it's so easy to be drawn to this.
yeah,
But the fact that Geetam is doing this, I think is a step in the right direction. I think it's, a very useful for the students, and for the faculty and everybody around to be around. Being around a healthy sports thing feels like it's just a heartbeat of an area.
yeah,
Just to walk around knowing that there's kids playing over there, there's faculty playing over there, two people are getting together. It's a healthy campus. People are running around. You know, they're health conscious, they're healthy, they're eating well, they're getting into these good habits. But also, I mean, just think about it. Like one of the first things you and I discussed over here, and one of the hardships that India faces is lack of opportunity to play. Simple lack of opportunity. Not You're not looking at the most fancy thing, just simple lack of opportunity to play, simple lack of opportunity to have a structured event calendar.
yeah,
And I know through conversations with Arun that he's been working towards creating a real culture at Geetam, which again, first thing is you have to applaud management when credit is deserved, is to have that vision to work towards something like this. I think it, to just see that, hey man, you know what, cool things could be possible as long as we work with the right vision in mind.
yeah. And for the students of Geetam, I must admit that you all are in very safe hands. The fact that you all have something in place is the starting step, right? And that is beautiful.
And
Um,
take advantage of it.
yes, absolutely. By all means, take advantage of
And
it.
Arun's going to hate me for this, but be the guy that's knocking on Arun Karthik's door,
Yes,
asking him for more sports.
Monday
He
morning,
will
we have
not.
100 students in front of Arun Karthik's cabin, right? So,
Absolutely knock on Arun Karthik's door and demand more sports. Sorry, Arun, had to do it.
No, that's going to be the dream, and that's the dream that I'm looking forward to now.
yeah. And I
Yeah.
was going to say, Rome wasn't built in a day, like they say, as the cliche goes, right? Again, I'm sorry, I'm going to bring in Siddharth Pandey, the conversation I was having with him on
Mhm.
hockey. They said after, I think it was around 2010 when India started to build a center of excellence for hockey. It was all going on in the background. No one saw this in the forefront. And as per researches that have been done by many people across many sports, apparently from the time you put a center of excellence in place till the time you start seeing results, it's roughly about 10 to 12 years. And I'm talking about some of the smartest minds in that sport involved in it, right? India did that for hockey around the 2010 mark. And he said, we're on cue. 2021, Tokyo, India winning a medal in men's hockey. But it's a lot of work that has gone on in the background for 11 years. It involved a lot of foreign minds to come in, Indian minds to come in, a lot of funding that had to happen. But that is the beauty of having a vision and putting a plan towards that. And he also said, I don't know how many girls are watching this, but he also said the women's team are well ahead of the curve, with pretty much ending up almost with a medal, just roughly like when they started to really focus on women's hockey was apparently in around 2014 or 15. So almost 6 years into it, they're already making strides. They're well ahead of what they even expected from the women's team, right? So it starts with a plan and a vision, and then the world is your oyster, right? You can go in any direction you want to. And what I'm trying to get to is the fact that Geetam have a plan, have a vision in place, is the step in the right direction. And who knows, 10 years from now, like you said, so many from the University of Virginia are Olympic medalists. We will have that first one come from Geetam University at some point in time, for sure.
Yeah, and listen, just ask Parth Jindal, at JSW. who set up, JSW Sports about a decade ago or so. And, they, to give them credit again, they did things right.
Yeah.
And then when they go out and get a medal like Neeraj Chopra, and then they come back and you ask him right now, hey, was all of that worth it?
Yeah.
What do you think? What do you think anybody is going to say? Because suddenly, I will say one thing over here, Navneet, is, and I say this to all of my players as well, because now I've taken the avatar as a, not just as a broadcaster, but also as a coach,
I mean,
spending more time with kids on court. And I always tell them this. I'm like, you know, ability and promise and potential is one thing,
yeah.
and to reach your ability and to find out how good your potential can be, that's
Translate.
a whole different story.
Yeah.
you know so there's a lot of kids who come over here who say, yeah, the parents are like, oh, this is a talented kid, and I'm like, yeah, again, the kid has the ability,
Yeah.
and it's great that the kid has the opportunity. Now, to realize that potential, there's a lot of work that needs to be put in.
Yeah.
And I said that so as a person who's now more into coaching, uh, obviously I've started understand, and also as a player, but now, as you get older, you start seeing these things a little bit more clearly. But that process of getting things right, is such an important aspect, because otherwise you're only focused on the pipe dream,
The destination.
you know
Not the,
and the destination, and the process of the journey of what happens, and the mistakes you make, and the mistakes you learn from, the number of times you fall down, and number of times things happen, and then you clear those things up and get better and improve. So that's the life, in a nutshell. That's the life of an athlete. And in a similar way, if you that's in a very micro level. If you look at it in a slightly more macro level, then you start looking at organizations like JSW, like Geetam, or
GT.
other universities that are now promoting this, other academies, and you start looking at it the same way, like, hey, it's actually simple. All we need to do is get a little bit better every day.
Yeah.
And in the words of Tiger Woods himself, I mean, he's one of the, I mean, nobody needs to talk about Tiger and then, talk about his accomplishments, but he's literally obsessed with the idea of getting better.
Yeah.
And, and even when he's down, he's not playing well. He's like, what do you need to do? I need to get better. When he's up and he's 10 shots lead going into final A, what do you need to do? Yeah, I need to get a little bit better. And people wonder, is it really that simple? And I think in many ways it is. It is, as long as you have that pursuit to just, that's what sport is.
Yeah.
Just getting better every day, not getting complacent about winning, and not getting too down on losing. It's just, I need to do my things every day, step by step, little by little, and then one day, the time is going to come where you have an opportunity.
Yeah. And
And
that's the thing with the most elite sportsmen, right? Their approach towards their discipline is their hunger and their desire to be nothing but the best. Virat Kohli in cricket is redefining the way Indians approach cricket, especially when they're touring abroad. He is now making the hosts look like visitors with just the sheer aggression, right? But that's the approach. And he wants nothing but the best. And it's fantastic. You see some of the books that you see on my little wall over here. I have
yeah.
Usain Bolt over there. I have Andre Agassi there. Some of those, some of the best in what they did, right? And to your point, the process is so important. And for those of you tuning in, I kid you not, when Arun introduced Som early on in this conversation, and when he said he was one of the fittest athletes, I'm not kidding. He meant every single bit of it. Som was a serious athlete. He would run from corner of the court to another corner, and he would tire his opposition out, right? And that was how good he was. And he would Soames told us stories as to how he would puke every other day at practice because of exhaustion, right? That takes me back to a story I read about Usain Bolt in his autobiography, where he said that every second day I'm puking after practice because that's how much I'm pushing my body, right? It's unbelievable what the human body and the mind can achieve when you just set out for it, right? So thanks for bringing that out. It's a good time for us to also, ask for a couple of questions. I know a whole bunch of you are tuned into this conversation. I have a couple that I already have on the chat as well, but we'll take a couple of live questions before we take some of that. So Som will be happy to answer some of those questions. Who do we have first?
We have Ravi Teja, I think, who is
Hi,
helping
Ravi.
out with a question.
Yeah, so very good afternoon. I would say good evening. I'd like to ask Somdev a question. Hello?
Yeah, go
Yeah.
ahead.
Ravi, go ahead.
Yeah, so first of all, it is very nice to hear you speak after. So I am a tennis player. So I was looking forward to hear about the business opportunities. I would like to set up a venture or an academy so that I would provide an opportunity for many more people to play tennis. So, so what do you think the scope of tennis as a business would be in a country like India?
I think huge. I think obviously depends on the city that you're in, but I think at least with my experience, in India and seeing how a lot of my friends actually run tennis academies in different cities, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Vizag, Delhi, Bombay, Chennai, of course. Um, one thing that I would say is that the one difference between sports and tech is that in tech you have the ability to scale at a level that's almost for me I can't comprehend.
Yeah.
The one place in sport where I feel like people have got it wrong sometimes is they've tried to scale too much.
Yeah, exactly.
And I would say one of the reasons that it doesn't work is just imagine that you're a coach and you're working with whatever 10 kids on a court or 10 kids in two courts, 5 kids on a court, something like that, or 10 kids playing football. Now in order for you to now have 1,000 kids,
Yeah.
it just makes it a little bit more complicated, which
Yes.
is why the point of scale becomes a little hard. But if you focus on, quality over quantity, if you focus on just running a good business, definitely making money, and finding new avenues to make more kinds of money through tennis, through events, through different coaching classes, through camps, through so many, through advisor counseling. There's a lot of different things as well.
Exactly.
Plus, in a tennis academy, you also have the option of not just working with kids, you also have the option of working with adults. One of the things that I like to see when I'm in America is how big it is for amateurs to be playing a circuit, how big it is for amateurs to be out there finding matches for each other every week, every weekend. So these are things that I think would really work in India. So just to answer your question, um, I think that it's a great business model. It's not very complicated. You can make an Excel sheet that would work fairly quickly, and find a business model. And I would say explore, get into it, give it a shot, because over the years, as you are doing it yourself, you'll find, your own style, what works and what doesn't work in your current ecosystem. And I think, at the end of the day, the way I've always looked at it with sport is the more people that end up playing your sport, the better it is for you in the long run.
Yes.
So opening up an academy would generally mean that you've provided an opportunity to several hundreds of kids in a few years. And over the
Absolutely.
long run, that I don't see how that can not be a good thing.
Exactly. And the one thing that we often see in India is, I mean, in rare cities where the sport is not even familiar, so we often don't get the quality right. So, what do you
Mhm.
think? You might have seen all the Rafael Nadal Academy or the Moratoglu or all these academies. So, what do you think the main factor that differentiates the those academies from those in India?
I mean, a lot of things, to be honest. I mean, I wouldn't know where to begin. It's from expertise to, grassroots programs to, beginner programs, the coaching level, the vision, the way they have events very, very often. Uh, it changes completely based on what the requirements of every particular academy are. So like a Muratoglu would be very different than a Rafael Nadal, and he would be very different than a good to great academy in Sweden, or they would be very different from an IMG in Florida. So I think, in order to run a successful academy, you would first need to be very sensitive about, the immediate requirements of the local community, because that's where you want a lot of your support from. That's where you want your base to be growing. And then also, I think around, what's the need of the hour. Again, as long as you're answering questions and you're providing people solutions and you're providing people more options, I think this is generally a good way to look at it. So for example, if you're talking, you can't get to a Moratoglu or a Rafael Nadal today, but we can get to it in 10 years. This is again what Navneeth was talking about, having Hockey India started something in 2010 and you're starting to see results now. I think you have to approach it in a very similar way in tennis as well, because we are pretty far behind. And again, the kind of results that you're talking about will vary, because at most great tennis academies, and this is a realization I'm having as I'm growing older and as I'm becoming a coach, at most the best tennis academies in the world, the IMGs, the Muratoglus, the you know good to greats, wherever else you look, at best 5% or 4% at best of these athletes that go there can turn pro. And it's a reality. It's a reality. Again, you're talking about whatever, uh, 2 million people playing tennis and only 2,000 having a ranking or something like that, which is the reality of it. So then you now start understanding that, while I do need to focus on that 4% or that 5%, I think it would also make sense for me to focus on making sure that the other 95% had a great experience from tennis and took something away from it for the rest of their life. And I look at it very much from as a teacher almost. You have the opportunity to allow tennis to become a part of somebody's life, or allow sport, or allow these practices that we're doing with, staying healthy and doing the right things, and you allow these habits to and this culture to become part of somebody's life, and who knows what happens from there. So I think you need to look at it a little holistically, and as long as you're being innovative and providing people good experiences to come back, then they over time it's generally a good way to approach it, I think.
Well, thanks, Som. Thanks, Ravi, for the question. Navneet, I'm just going to have one more person come in and ask a question, and then it'll be back to you.
Sure.
I think that's Aditya. Aditya, yeah, go ahead with the question.
Yeah. Hi. Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. So great. Firstly, thank you so much for this opportunity. I just have a couple of questions. As both of you are sports presenters and broadcasters, I want to understand the importance of storytelling in sport in India, at least, because probably like 10 years ago, you wouldn't have seen a lot of sports broadcasters coming in, or people actually understanding the importance of storytelling to sell anything for that matter. But in this day and age where people really like to understand, how things are done, people enjoy documentaries, BTS, people listen to a lot of sports podcasts. I just want to understand how important that will be in the building of sport in India.
Over to Navneeth.
Adi, thanks for the question. Look, it's there for us to see. We're just changing with the changing times. The world is moving towards a lot more digital kind of content. We have access to everything. You're getting access to dressing room conversations today. You look at what Drive to Survive does in Netflix, right? You follow all the Instagram handles of the IPL teams. You get to practically live along with your future, your celebrities, your idols, etc. And you see that in everything, right? Not just sports, but in movies, in the music space, in the sports space, whatever. So as we move forward, the way the world is changing, is evolving, is that we're getting access and we're getting a lot closer to people, right? So by virtue of podcasts, social media, etc., it's just different ways of bringing you closer towards the action. And I think that is going to be the way to go. And you will continue to see companies, teams innovate in this space. I think as we move forward, it'll just become so brilliant. You look at the NBA teams, look at the Premier League teams, look at the IPL teams, the kind of content they create. It almost feels like we're part of the bubble that they're in the world that they're in, right?
Yeah,
So
the season has so many things, and
exactly.
broadcasters doing it. Yeah, they're telling us a story so beautifully.
And back in the day, it was only TV that we would switch on to watch something, to understand what's happening. It's either the news or the live feed of the tournament or the match that we're looking forward to watching. Today, that isn't the case. In fact, if anything, we switch on the TV when the game starts and we switch off the TV when the game turns off. Everything else we consume on our phone by virtue of podcasts, match previews, match reviews, images, content, reels, blah, blah. You know the drill, right? So it is going to be the way forward. And therein lies the opportunity for more people to come into this field for different kind of storytelling, not just verbal. It can be visual, it can be comedy, it can be humor, but in the sports space. And that is the beauty. You see so many IPL teams collaborating with content creators who are technically YouTube content creators or Instagram reel content creators. But that's where it's going. We're just blurring the line between what is possible and what isn't. And suddenly there's so much innovation in the space, right? And I think it really is going to be the way to go. And soon there will come a time when conventional form of consuming content, which is TV, will become a small part of the overall content consumption space. I think that's what comes to my mind. So
Yeah, agreed completely. I think, listen, at the end of the day, the art of storytelling uh, is is one person's perspective. And the nice thing that Navneet was also discussing just now is that now, and Navneet, correct me if I'm wrong. When you started out,
yeah,
when you first started out,
yeah,
you just started this whole thing where you were reliving a match in a minute,
yeah,
something like that,
yeah,
which is in a way storytelling in its own,
yeah, yeah.
and
It's called Quick Single. I'm glad you even remember it, but it's
of
nice.
course I remember it because you used to send me a few to say, hey, let me know how I'm doing. And I used to give you a little bit of feedback here and there. But the reason I'm bringing that up is because Navneet found a way to watch the match, and you watched it from his angle as an analyst, as an expert, as a commentator, somebody who's in the field, and somebody who's following the team and the sport.
Yeah,
And I thought that was a really beautiful angle. If you were a fan of what he was talking about, you would immediately be drawn to it. Like, if I wanted to know what happened in this match, I would tune in for a minute and I would know this. Now, this was Navneet's idea of storytelling for what was required at the time and whatever he was working on, and this continues to evolve. So what I think is, the nice thing now is that everybody has the ability to do that
yeah, absolutely.
because they have a phone.
Yeah,
So over time, if we are really true passionate fans of this sport or that sport, and you know what, it can even be international sport. It doesn't have to be something, it can be anything. I think, personally, if somebody's talking about pretty much anything and they're doing it with like real passion, and they've done their homework and they've done their research, and they're out there trying to put out the right information to the right audience in the right way. I mean, it's essentially what PewDiePie does with with YouTube. But if we can do it structured with sports, I think that's, honestly, the sky's the limit. Because to bring in a different perspective, like, let's imagine, for example, we're doing wrestling. How are one of us going to know the true story? But imagine if there was a wrestler from the state of Haryana who actually has been a part of it, and later on in life decided that he or she wanted to say the story of what it truly was. Absolutely, I would be encapsulated by or drawn to finding out what that story really is. And different parts of India have the opportunity to currently do that with different sports. So yes, storytelling, just to answer your question again, I know I give long answers. Even when I was a kid, I used to give long answers in exams. But just to answer your question, I think storytelling will be incredibly important because it will bring out different perspectives of things that we are all passionate about.
100%. And I'm going to add one thing. I know there are about 25 of you all, and I take this from me. I think it's extremely important that we take advantage of the digital world that we're living in. There was, it's now the push versus pull approach. There was a time when we had to go and audition for work. We would go to different people and audition for work and live at the mercy of these clients to see whether they think we are good enough to be on their platform. That has completely been disrupted. Today, like Som said, you take the camera, do your thing. Whether it's sports, it's inspirational, it's humor, it's whatever be it. You take the camera, put it out for the world to see. And you know what the difference is in the push and the pull? Now clients start coming after you to take you in, whether it's a brand collaboration or whatever, or they want to work with you. That is the beauty, right, of the digital world. And therein lies an opportunity for us to do whatever we feel like. And an extension of that statement, what I do want to say is, because most of y'all are on the verge of stepping into the world outside from college, the number of opportunities available as a career in sports is tremendous. And I'm not even talking about you being an athlete. You don't even have to be an athlete. You can work in production agencies that are related to sports. You can be a production manager, an assistant director. You can be all of those things. You can be a social media manager, a photographer or a videographer or an editor, because they're hugely in demand in this space. You can be like what Som and I do now, is being a host, an anchor, a presenter, or a broadcaster. So I'm trying to give you a sense that you can be in the operations space, the likes of a DNA company, they do manage operations of large tournaments, right? And what I'm trying to give you a sense is the opportunities in the sports industry, even for a non-athlete, is tremendous. You just need to figure out what is it that really suits your boat and go after it. And that, I think, is... Som, you want to add something?
Yeah, I mean, just to do like the Olympics, right? Like we were just doing, we were a part of a bubble, and there's 260 people part of our tiny bubble, and you only get to see about 6, right? Like, so just put that into perspective. I'm sure you've been a part of the IPL bubble. I mean, I'm guessing you're talking much bigger numbers than 260, right? But so honestly, guys, what I'm coming down to over and over again, and me and Navneeth for sure, when you have questions like this, knock on Arun Karthik's door, because he will guide you in some direction and put pressure on this guy to make it happen, because he responds very well to these kind of things.
Absolutely.
And he has the experience as well.
Yeah. And I'm going to take another question that's come in our chat, right? Very important question, particularly for the students. What role can be played by parents, educational institutions, and governments to help encourage the average Indian child to think, enjoy sport rather than, if I don't do well in studies, I will be a failure in life? So you wanna take a stab at that?
I mean, yeah, man, I don't know. I don't know how. I don't feel like I have the right to tell anybody if they'll be a success or a failure.
Yeah.
First of all, I think again, the most important thing is to do things for the right reasons. The same way you don't join uh, an engineering college to win the Nobel Prize.
Yeah.
It's similar. You don't start playing tennis to win Wimbledon. But people don't look at it that way. And I think the first thing is to start playing for the right reasons, and then realize that opportunities will come about one way or another. So all we can do is, again, not to sound dry or thing, but like focus on the process. The process at the end of the day is one of the most rewarding things if you truly get immersed in it. The fact that you start seeing small improvements happen in front of your eyes, just with as a tennis player, you felt it, when I was a young kid, when I was working on something, and let's say it was fitness, and then you played 5 matches and you realize that 3 of those matches you won because you were fitter than somebody else. To see that is very encouraging. Let's say you're an event organizer, and to run a smooth event and to have a few hiccups, but the second event that you've run a really smooth event. Everybody who's come, they've had a great experience. That is success. And even if they didn't, but the fact that we were learning to now make it better, and always try and find, it's like the app world. No app is ever stagnant. They're always trying to find that next upgrade. So I feel like that's actually the life of an athlete. That's the life of a coach, is to find those little ways to get better every single day. And I think that once you get into that habit, you start looking at life differently. So again, success and failure for me is too broad a topic to comment on, because there's just so many things that go into something being successful and to something being deemed a failure. And a failure isn't really a failure as long as you learn from it.
It's too strong a word. I don't think it even
It's
applies.
exactly. I find it too strong a word and too harsh, too
Yeah.
harsh a word to be judged too soon. There's never been a time where I've looked at a kid who's training and said, "You are a failure. You can never do that." Like, I just don't feel like I have the, you don't have the right to do that, because as long as the person is learning something from this process, who knows what that lesson could, or where that lesson could take this person,
Yeah, absolutely. And I
right?
think what
So
Fruit's trying to get to is enjoy what you're doing. That's all. It really is that, right? Like, if you want to pick up a sport and you want to pursue that, it's because you like going back to the cricket stadium or the tennis court or the football field or whatever it is, right? If the fact that you're liking it also coincides with the fact that you're very good at it, then let's see where it goes and take it as it
yeah,
comes, right? But
right,
I like, even before you take the first step, if you want to ask yourself, will I be a success or failure? I think you're putting way too much on yourself.
exactly,
Enjoy the process, just have fun. I think that's really the summary of what we're trying to say is get out there, play sports, and have fun. And that's what we really want to do.
exactly.
Yeah. Awesome. We probably have time for a few more questions that I'm going to throw at Som. Okay. Som,
Mm,
this will come down to you as maybe similar to an Andy Roddick serve, maybe from the other end. Okay. So
let's see. Okay,
you got to be at your very.
don't do. I generally don't do well against those, but give it a shot.
Okay. So I'll put you on the spot right from the get go. Roger Federer or Rafael Nadal?
Roger,
I love that. I love that answer. There's
Roger,
probably a few Rafa fans that won't be liking this, but
and if you know, hey, listen, and a few Novak fans.
yeah, of course, of course, of course. Uh,
Yeah.
let me an extension of this conversation, right? Sachin Tendulkar or Virat Kohli. I know you love your cricket, by the way. For those of you who don't know, he's deep into tennis, but he loves his cricket. He's Indian after all. Sachin or
Um, for me, Sachin. I mean, listen, no disrespect to Virat, very, very, very high up there, and doesn't need my approval, but Sachin.
well, you know what? He made cricket what it is for all of us in India, right? So there's a reason why.
Yeah, he made me superstitious, man.
Yeah, yeah.
I'd be like, if I'm sitting there, like it's kind of watching, PV Sindhu at the Olympics. For me, watching PV Sindhu made me superstitious in sport again, because you wanted her to win, so you wouldn't move from certain positions.
Yeah.
And I felt like Sachin was one of the first ones to introduce this whole, staring at the TV for me, right? And I can never forget that. It's been a huge influence in my life.
It was true when they said that when Tendulkar comes out to bat, all of India just switches off from the rest of their lives because
Yep,
it's Sachin and the TV. Apple or Android?
right.
Apple.
Apple. Yeah.
As an ex-Google employee, I'm not going to say much to you. So
I do use Google Chrome though. Google Chrome is my thing. Yeah.
some brownie points, I shall give you that.
Google Chrome, Google Sheets, Google Docs. We can go on and on.
Of course.
But yeah.
Your favorite cuisine? You travel the world quite a bit, so I'm sure you love food.
I would.
Oh,
Tough
Arun
one,
has
man.
to say this. Oh, wait.
It's a
I actually read something on Wikipedia when on these lines. Arun, you want to say something first?
I think his favorite food is fried rice from Dindukkal Talapakatti.
No, he's making a joke because one time we went out to dinner, or we were ordering dinner in, and I decided to order Chinese food from an old South Indian place, and it actually was unbelievable.
We have Dindigul
So
Kalpakatti here in Bangalore as well, by the way.
yeah. So honestly, I'm easy with food. I would say favorite food is probably I love charts, man.
Charts.
It's like one of those things you don't never got abroad, like and I love South Indian food.
Yeah,
Absolutely love it.
we had sambar rice. I was like, not bad.
I did grow up in Chennai. I know that like people don't associate it when they see me, but I did grow up in Chennai and hence South Indian food. Yeah.
Your the favorite country that to play tennis in for you? Will it be the US?
America. Yes, it'll be America. I mean, most of my success has been here, most of not just success, but my entire learning process happened around here.
Yeah.
From the time where I didn't believe in myself to the time when I believed in myself.
Yeah, those
You
formative
know,
years were all in the US, right? So
right,
yeah.
right.
But what about your favorite, like let's say, holiday country, destination, whatever?
Man, I've not taken that many of late, but the last one I took before the pandemic was in Sri Lanka,
Okay.
and I loved it. I absolutely loved it, not just for the fact that, you could get out in the sun and get out in the waves and, have some fun in the water and things like that, but also as an Indian, you like deals.
Yeah.
And you always felt like in Sri Lanka you were getting good deals, and it was fairly inexpensive, and you could have a good time. You could a great bang for your buck.
Absolutely.
So I would say Sri Lanka for me is up there. Sri Lanka, Nepal is another. I love Nepal.
Yeah.
But honestly, one of my goals is to explore India a lot more, because I mean, man, the amount of cool things you can see in small places, and and the different kind of cultures that come out. So that is one of my goals, and I love traveling. So hopefully I get to accomplish that.
Super. Next question, unrelated to traveling. When is Som releasing his next album, of his first album?
Man, that is number one on my to-do list right now.
I love it.
Believe it or not, that is number one. I have to find the time. I went through this time in lockdown where I had all the time in the world.
Listen, Som, an album has like 7 songs. Please don't wait for India to win 7 gold medals for you to write songs about 7 of them, okay?
No, I'm
picturing this Som with long hair, with a guitar in his hand on the stage, a capacity crowd in a blocked out stadium, and he's absolutely nailing it. That's what I'm picturing.
I'm picturing the same thing. It's like when I was, when I was a kid, you pictured it in tennis, and you were like, oh, okay, wow. And honestly, like this is also one of those things,
Yeah.
and man, listen, music has been for me really self-reflective.
Yeah.
To a point where I, I've written all of these things in my notes, and if you know how you feel, if somebody reads your notes, you're like, man, this person is really going to judge me. They're going to think I'm a mad person if they read my notes and my thoughts and what goes into it. The nice thing is if you put it into a song, it's cool, so yeah, it's on number one on my to-do list. Hopefully, um, first Corona was so slow, and now things have like sped up to a point where it's too fast. Things are happening for me every week. So hopefully the goal is to find 1 month from now till the end of the year.
Okay.
Lock myself in the studio with the people I need to be with and knock out the album. So let's hope that happens. That's a goal of mine.
Final question, your sporting idol.
Changes every week, because every week I'll watch a new Netflix documentary or a new documentary on YouTube or Amazon Prime. And 1 week it's Tiger Woods, next week it's Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
And as of right now, and I was talking to a few people at the Olympic broadcast, I think the kind of personality that Muhammad Ali had, for me, the things that he fought, the way he fought them, the reasons he fought them for, the changes that he made, the voice that he still continues to be, for me, Muhammad Ali is right up there. And the respect that he had, the respect that he gained.
Say Muhammad Ali, not for what he did in the ring, but what he fought for outside the ring.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
You know, so I think favorite of all time has to be Ali, but honestly, subject to change.
Subject to change. Netflix is releasing Michael Schumacher soon, so he might just say Schumacher at some point.
Exactly. Last summer for me, it was the Last Dance.
Yeah.
With Michael Jordan, and for all the students that haven't watched it, definitely watch that.
It's the beauty of sport. It's what sports gives us, right? It gives us people to idolize. It gives us something to go after, right? And
real life drama
like nothing else. And so on that note, I want to say a very big thank you. You waking up at 5:30 a.m. in the United States is testimony to what sports does for you and what you want to give back to sports. And I know how much it's given you in life. And I know a lot of folks on this chat will take a lot back from this conversation. Thanks a lot for chatting with us, and hopefully this is the first of many more conversations in the future. We wish you luck for everything that you're going to be doing in the coming days and months. All the best for that. But before we sign off, Arun would want you to launch the Freedom Run for Geetam.
Absolutely, and I'd love to do that. So I'm just going to go on my chat with Arun to make sure I get the right thing out.
And for all the
guys, I've had an absolute blast over here, and thank you so much for having me. First of all, Navneeth, Arun, the Geetam University, the kids who are all here watching. It's been a blast, and honestly, honor for me to come here and chat with people who also are passionate about sports and want to talk about it. You know, to want to keep the conversation going. You couldn't have got a better host than Navneeth. So Navneeth, I've done this with you a few times. Pleasure as always. Arun, again, thanks for having me. And I officially, proudly, declare the Geetam Freedom Run 2.0 open.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Right, guys. I know there are 20 odd of you on this chat. You can unmute yourself if that's a possibility, and you can say thank you to Som if that is possible. I'm not too sure. I'll give you maybe 5 seconds for you to do that. I know Som will. Are you going to hit the sack again, Som? It's still 7 a.m. for you.
It's 7. I don't know. I've probably woken up everybody in the house already. So I'm going to see the mood before I figure out what the rest is.
Wonderful. So enjoy your Friday, enjoy your weekend, and to everyone at Geetam, we wish you all the very best, and only good things in store. Thanks a lot, everyone, and have a fabulous weekend.
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Cheers.
For educating the Geetam community on the role of sport in our lives, taking us through the journey of how Som has been a part of the student life athlete journey, and acquainting us with the opportunities that we have in sport and outside of sport. Thank you so much for taking time out, Navneeth, to be the host for us this evening. And of course, everybody, the takeaway from this session is basically to enjoy sports and live life as you can. Yeah. Cheers. Thank you. Signing off.
Cheers, guys.
Thank you so
much. Thanks, Navneeth. Pleasure as always.
Take care, brother. We'll keep in touch. See you.
Yeah. Bye, guys.
See you.